Say you're 30 years old today and you plan to stop working at 60 and you expect to live till 80. That means 20 years of retirement. And if you need 7,000 ringgit a month to live comfortably post-retirement, that means you have to withdraw 7,000 ringgit a month for 20 years. This means you will need 1.68 million ringgit at the moment you're 60 years old to retire comfortably, right? No, wrong. If you have been calculating a retirement this way, you're in big trouble because this 1.68 million is gonna run out before you die. So why?
Hey, Vsauce. Massive legend here.
One word, inflation. As you can see, inflation is everywhere. Just look at my telur.
What did he say? So last time the egg was bigger. The egg just went from medium to small.
Do you really think it's a good idea to try and bully me?
I am
Small.
For some of you who are watching this right now may tell me,
I took into account inflation. I'm smarter. So I know my number is not 7,000 ringgit, but 7,000 on today's standard. Grow to 60 years old, that is 30 years of inflation.
So with an inflation of 3%, by the time I retire, I will need 16,000 ringgit 990 a month to survive post-retirement for 20 years. This means I'll need 4.077 million ringgit at 60 years old in order to live comfortably.
I'm smart, right?
no, you're wrong again. I'm tired of seeing all these wrong calculations. So you know what? Let me show you how to really calculate how much you need if you're gonna stop working. What you need to remember are two very important factors. Number one, inflation. And this inflation exists not just between 30 to 60 years old, but it goes out throughout until 80 years old the day you die. Even when you stop working, inflation don't stop working, okay? Let me remind you about my telur.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Now, the second factor, growth. When you save up a bunch of money to retire at 60 years old, please don't tell me you're gonna keep it under your bed. You're probably gonna invest it, put it in the bank or something like that. So this means even when you're retired, when you keep withdrawing income from your saving every month, there is still gonna be investment return coming in from the balance of your investment. You are withdrawing money while your money is growing at the same time. So this is how you do it the right way. First, let's say you will need 7,000 ringgit a month based on today's standard to live comfortably post-retirement. Now, you need to take into account of inflation between 30 years old to 60 years old. Let's assume the number is going to be 3%. This means 7,000 ringgit based on today's standard compounded by 3% in inflation over the next 30 years, this number will be 16,990 ringgit a month. Now, this is the easy part. What comes next is a little bit more complicated. Because between 60 to 80, you will need to take into account of both inflation and investment growth. So if you need to pause this video, slow down, rewind or whatever, take your own sweet time, but you need to get this right. Now, like we have mentioned, inflation doesn't stop at 60 years old. It keeps going on.
life goes on and on and on and on and on.
So this 16,990 every year you still need to take into account of inflation, assuming it's still gonna be 3%. The next thing, at 60 you would have saved up a bunch of money. You have some savings here. Maybe in a savings scheme, investment scheme or whatever it is. And it's still gonna generate you some sort of investment return. Assuming by that time the investment return is gonna be about 5% per year. So now you need to take into account of these two factors, which every time when you withdraw an income to use for retirement, you are still gonna enjoy some sort of investment return from your balance as well. So to reconcile this, you need to use one very simple formula. It's called the adjusted rate of return. And this is the formula. So in this case, the adjusted return will be 1 plus 5% divided by 1 plus inflation 3%, then minus 1. The answer will be 1.9417%. With this adjusted rate now, you can calculate how much you need. But for that, it's going to be a more complicated formula. Now, with this adjusted return, you can plug in the number into this formula and calculate how much you need at 60 to retire. But now you may be thinking, this is bullshit. It's just way too complicated. Well, I thought the same as well. That's the reason why I made it into a calculator on an Excel sheet. To make the best out of this video, you have to download the retirement calculator we have prepared and follow along so that you know how much do you truly need when you stop working in Malaysia. You may notice this retirement planning calculator is much more comprehensive. It can do a lot of things such as EPF calculation and calculate the shortfall that you need for your retirement. So if you'd like us to do a full video on how to use this retirement planning calculator, write retirement in the comments below. But nonetheless, let us get on to using this to calculate the amount you need. Let's start with the current age. Assuming you are 30 years old this year and you plan to retire at the age of 60. Then you assume that you're gonna live till 80 years old. The next data that you need to key in is the estimated monthly expenses after retirement based on today's standard. Let's keep that at 7,000 ringgit. Between 30 years old to 60 years old, there's gonna be inflation as we have mentioned. So you need to key in the inflation rate pre-retirement, assuming it's gonna be 3%. And post-retirement between 60 to 80, let's assume it's gonna be 3% as well. Then, as we have mentioned, your savings is gonna have an investment return at 60 years old onwards as well. So post-retirement, your investment will still have a return, say of 5%. Now, just scroll down. As you can see, your estimated monthly expenses at retirement monthly will be 16,990 and yearly will be 203,890. Then post-retirement, you will have an inflation of 3% and investment return of 5%. With that, you get an adjusted return of 1.9417 and your capital needed at retirement will be 3.4 million. Yes, that's how simple it is with technology. Now that you know the amount that you need to save for retirement, start saving now. Let me tell you why. Because there is a financial crisis out there that is brewing and no one is talking about. And if you're not prepared for it, you could be in deep trouble when you retire.